first item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. And we do in fact have someone tonight who wishes to address the board. I'd like to introduce Mr. Chica Rodriguez, who wishes to speak to the board on the topic of the curriculum at the high school, specifically the ELA reading lists, I think. Rather than steal your thunder, I'll let you go. Please, thank you.
Should I stand for this? Or?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
All right. Let's see. All right. Dear School Board, in light of recent events in which there have been multiple instances of police brutality against black communities, we wanted to bring to your attention the problem of anti-blackness in America, specifically how we can fight to be anti-racist and encourage productive dialogue on race and identity among our student bodies. One of the core foundations of a student's mindset is shaped through the educational process. We are sure you can agree that the education system is of absolute importance in the lives of America's children, and while it has been very successful in many of its endeavors, it has also been drastically underutilized as a tool to combat racism. There are many reasons why we believe high school is the optimal time frame to introduce students to such difficult but necessary topics. Firstly, completing high school represents a culmination of a student's core educational studies. This core should educate students regarding how to be anti-racist in the classroom. K through 12 education encapsulates teaching students about the most basic, fundamental components that are seen as integral to their academic pursuits, regardless of whether they choose to continue further education paths post-graduation. While math, science, history, and English are all considered integral academic pursuits, so is learning to be anti-racist. We all live in America, and it is undeniable that this country was built upon the foundations of slavery, followed closely by sharecropping, then segregation, then the war on drugs, and the list goes on and on. While chattel slavery has been abolished, modern-day slavery in the form of systemic racism is deeply entrenched and has only festered and worsened in the past few years. We live and experience our daily lives in this type of society, and it shapes the way we think about the world and interacting with others. As a result, we must strive to understand the perspectives of black and brown communities and do everything in our power to educate those who come through our school systems. Additionally, high school is an optimal time to incorporate anti-racist narratives into curriculum because it is the last time students will be enrolled in mandatory schooling. Not everyone chooses to attend college after 12th grade, and implementing anti-racist texts as a school requirement ensures that the majority of students passing through our school systems will receive some exposure to diversity in the classroom. Numerous colleges around this country offer ethnic studies programs, as well as courses on issues of social justice, but the problem is that these course offerings create a self-selected group of individuals. Students studying these topics in college are the ones who specifically already want to do so, and are more likely to already be engaged in anti-racist activism or allyship. As a result, this leads to the development of ignorance among the rest of the student body. As we know, apathy or ignorance can be a very dangerous force to reckon with in regards to the power racial oppression has in America. Learning about these concepts in high school under the proper guidance of well-trained, qualified teachers can help expand exposure to such an important topic. Due to the reasons stated above, we propose that 1. A minimum of at least one book in every English/literature and composition class be by a person of color and about a person or a people of color's experience. 2. Teachers must have autonomy to choose books from the recommended list provided, or if the chosen text accurately portrays the cultural and racial diversity of our society. 3. At least one of the mandated books be about the black experience, due to the anti-blackness that has existed since the inception of our nation. 4. The fiction books adopted as part of this curriculum are published post-civil rights movement around the 1960s to ensure that issues of race are taught with contemporary, modern-day context in mind. 5. This implementation be enforced not only in all standard English classes, but alternatives for standard English classes, such as AP/IB programs. 6. These texts be analyzed to the same extent that any other traditional text would be analyzed in a classroom. 7. A voluntary task force composed of teachers be created to issue guidelines that ensure these texts are taught with proper tools to ensure racial sensitivity. We urge that this school board take action by adopting such texts in line with the above proposal. These books can either be nonfiction or fiction, will be chosen with recommendations from teachers and input from the student body as a whole. A non-comprehensive recommended reading list we encourage teachers to choose from can be found on our website, but this list is subject to revision and adaptation. We wholeheartedly understand that as a school board, you do have a specific protocol in place for the selection of new instructional materials in the classroom. While we respect these procedures and the amount of thoughtfulness and dedication this review process demands, we would like to request that this proposal, along with the books listed, be granted an expedited review process in order to enact tangible change both quickly and effectively. All books on this list have an excellent, proven track record of educating readers on racial issues in dynamic, transformative, and school-appropriate ways. Schools are such an important tool in this long journey towards dismantling racism in this country. To be silent on these issues is to dismiss the potential of this powerful institution to actively combat racism. It is time that we enact permanent, structural change in our school system to contribute to this cause. We recognize that the district has a strong commitment to student success and educational endeavors, and we believe that it can better accomplish its goals by adopting the practices explained in this proposal. Let us diversify our narrative and utilize our school system to combat oppression in this country and work towards a more equal, just world for all. And this petition is signed by concerned current students, alumni, and parents of the Marshall School District. As of this moment, 85 members of the community have signed this petition, and the names can be found on the Diversify Our Narrative website. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Chief.
That was really well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any comments or questions?
What is the name of your website again?
Diversify Our Narrative. I believe it's an email that was sent initially on this petition.
okay.
And I should also mention that I have already been in contact with certain teachers and the superintendent and also some principals about some racial initiatives that have already been started. So I do want to thank you all for your work on that. I know that's ongoing. So that's been a positive aspect of this, and I hope to continue working with everyone. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, my information was included in the email I was sent, but it can also be found pretty easily. My family went through the school district and have a lot of connections here, so definitely hoping that we can all kind of work together and get some things done. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Chico, obviously, this is great timing. You know, our administrative team met about 3 weeks ago to actually talk about beginning this process. So it's really good, and we appreciate the work you put into this and the weeks put into this. So thank you very much.
You can hang around for the boring part if you want.
Sneak out the back door.
You're welcome to leave if you want to.
No, I'll be set.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting. Unfortunately, of the four of us, only three were present, so we don't have a quorum to vote on the approval of those minutes. Though I do want to say, Elaine, that done a spectacular job. We had a tremendous amount of information in that last meeting, and you did a spectacular job of capturing it.
Great.
So we will table the approval of the minutes for our next meeting.
I have the others though, so I'll just give those to you.
That brings us to the report of the chair. And the first item is the town officials meeting, which took place on September 9th. I intended to attend it, and my day job work life got crazy that day, so who among the board was able to attend that?
I attended while driving, listening in.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
was I the only one
On Monday?
on?
Last
The
Wednesday.
ninth, last
Oh,
Wednesday.
Was it Wednesday? Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. Is that the one we're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Vivian.
So John, you can help me fill in if I
absolutely.
miss anything. They started off just talking really about what everybody was doing as far as COVID stuff in the buildings, what their masking procedures were, what the masking procedures were around town, some concerns at some local businesses, if people were masking or not, so there was some discussion around that, and we just made sure, it sounded like everyone was on the same page pretty much as far as mask use and everything. What else did we talk about? Did they talk about briefly the traffic here?
Yep, and talked a lot about the business next door and the work that they've done with
Yeah.
the road widening is almost complete at this point in time. Hopefully by the end of this week will be taken care of. But Jay Rademacher has done a great job with that. Also just Perry kind of shared his timeline of kind of his transition out of the position. And I think what his biggest concern, he's brought it up 3 or 4 times now, is that he doesn't want to lose the traffic light at here, and really stressing again how the town of LA, the town of South Berwick, and the school department really needs to work together to make that happen. And so we asked the question, should we do a traffic study now? And he really felt like give it some time so that the businesses across the street can kind of build up some momentum a little bit. So obviously that will inflate the numbers a little bit to be able to better give some opportunity for the traffic light. And then kind of just shared what we were doing with playgrounds. One of the questions kind of came up is the town of Southborough, had closed some playgrounds and had some that were open, or asking kind of what we were doing. And we had not closed the playgrounds over the summer, but we had posted them to people to be. Obviously, if we go into a different color category, then that will probably change how we have to be able to manage that. But just so people are aware, our students are using those during the day. It's really obviously using safe practices, but at the same time, we're mindful of where we are. So, I think that was really
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. Next, second item on the report of the chair is topics for board meetings. We talked about this last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. If any board members have specific topics that they'd like to see covered in detail in any future meetings, let John or Elaine know. Go ahead.
We had 3 so far
Oh, good.
that have come up. Kind of, and I'm going to paraphrase, but I think one of them, Lisa, is kind of the evolution of the elementary guidance counselor, school counselor, just kind of how that job has evolved over time, and kind of really getting a grasp on what that position looks like now, because what it probably looked like 10 years ago is different than what it looks like now. Talking about secondary guidance counselors with college placement, career placement, of what that role looks like, and just getting some information around that. And then talking about our curriculum review using the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion in that work that we'll be doing. I do want to share that Heidi, that's actually reached out to West Ed, it's an education consulting firm who actually creates a process to be able to begin those conversations. And so Heidi's reached out to Kevin Perks, who we've worked with in the past, for some tools as staff start to transition into our curriculum review once we get past the opening of school.
So we would include an update on the high school reading list activity as part of that.
It's part of yours,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes, that's correct. Yep, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
So if there's any other ones,
I'd like to clarify the role of the resource officer at the middle school a little further.
yep. I have, and so I'm meeting with Jeff Upton to create a job description, so absolutely we can do a presentation for you about that, absolutely. So, yeah.
That's a 4th. Very good. Okay, next item on the report of the chair is the MSMA Fall Conference, which is being done virtually this year. We talked about this 2 weeks ago as well. It's on October 30th and 31st. And I still think that registration information is not yet available, but keep an eye out for that. I'm sure it will be forthcoming shortly. It's a 2-day conference, Friday and Saturday. That completes the report of the chair. Give it to you, John, for the
Okay,
resolution.
absolutely. Well, thank you all very much. I did want to take a second to kind of go off script for a moment and introduce Dr. Peter Harrison. Dr. Harrison is our new principal at Elliott Elementary School. We're going to ask him to kind of share with us tonight, but I did want to take a second to introduce Peter to you. So to kind of start off with, typically the first meeting we have is the first day of school. It's a little bit different this year, but we did want to share kind of the enrollment information. So Ryan's created some charts and graphs to kind of go through, and he'll do that with us right now. So Ryan, go right ahead.
So the first, probably most colorful graph that I have is the first day of school enrollment data. It breaks it down by school from 2015 to 2020. And you'll notice the gray bar in 2020. And next to the gray bar, I have kind of like the change in enrollment year over year. You'll notice we're down significantly at our elementary schools this year, which is somewhat expected due to the circumstances. But we are up 8 students at Great Works, basically flat at the middle school, and +5 at our high school. And then our Rollinsford information is also presented. That does not go back to 2015 because 2016 was the first year. The next page just kind of breaks it down further by grade level, what our enrollment looks like. Blue being 2019, green being 2020. You can kind of see those, our K enrollments down significantly. It could just be, parents deciding their kids home based on COVID or whatever, or school or things like that. The next page kind of shows what our first day of school enrollment does after when we get to October 1 and we certify that enrollment. So typically we see some movement. Last year, the overall loss was 4 students. which was very minimal. We usually see a much more significant drop between the first day of school and October 1st. Usually it's, I think last year was 41 students, so hopefully we kind of stick more with the 4-student formula this year. Not sure what that will look like, but just to kind of lay that out there, that is a possible change. The next page is our overall enrollment totals, going back to 2014. And you can kind of see that we had a slight increase through 2016. We had a little drop, a little bump back up, but then a significant drop in 2019, and now we're getting 2020. So the number of students we projected for 2021, which is this school year, was 2,229. This year, we typically are around 50 or 60 homeschool students. This year we're up around 80 or 90. So we had an increase of 34 this year, which accounts for our projected enrollment of 2,229 and the drop to 2,196. We just had a significant increase in the number of homeschool students. That has the potential to negatively impact our subsidy. So we do not get subsidy for homeschool students. So if you had 34 students and you take them off of our subsidy, that's typically, we get, the subsidizable formula is about $10,000 per student, so you're talking $350,000. That obviously would get washed through the rest of the subsidy formula. Probably you're talking more like $140,000, $150,000 at the end of the day. It's still a pretty significant hit for our subsidy. There has been talk at the state level that they may use, like, they go back an extra year for enrollment just because this year is so kind of different than it has been in the past. And they would expect probably the enrollment to kind of go back up next year if everything kind of returns to normal. So they may skip a year and not count this year's enrollment, but that is not definitive yet. So just wanted everyone to know that there could be a negative impact on our subsidy based on the number of homeschools we have. And the last page just shows, this is a new graph this year, obviously. We typically don't have an in-person and remote option. But just wanted to show kind of the breakdown at each grade level of how many students we have in person and how many students we have remote. It's not exactly proportional, but you can kind of see across grade levels that it's a pretty even percentage of the number of students at each grade level is remote, and we have a proportional number of in person. So, but just kind of to show you that breakdown, we're probably a little more heavy remote in the 6th and 8th grade levels. Our remote program is pretty full, so just kind of want to give you that breakdown. Does anybody have any questions on the enrollment numbers?
I want to make sure I understood, Rand, the declines that are showing in the 2 elementary schools are due to the increase in homeschooling. We're seeing
I believe
most,
so, yes, yes.
yeah, most of the
We have
homeschooling
much
is at
more
that
of the
level.
kindergarten
Elementary level, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No other questions? Okay, our next step would be to just kind of hear from the principals, and just kind of a quick update of how the different buildings opened up this school year. We're going to take some pressure off Peter, so we're going to start with Rob, and then we'll go down. This time rather than going up like we usually do. So, Rob, just share with us how things are at Marshall High School and the opening.
Sure. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for that opening. We're excited about that work. So looking at it through the lens of the just really practical, the plan and implementing it, I would say our orientation week and our first couple days of classes have gone superstitious. Have gone well to very well in the, we just look at it through this lens right now, how students are arriving, how we're moving through spaces, how we're conditioning students to implement all the health protocols, and at the same time making it feel like kind of somewhat natural or regular a practice. So when students arrive, we have determined areas where they go. Outside is also one of them. We've staggered our time to classes. Our transition in the hallways look pretty good. As I said, we use the orientation week to have half of a half, and now that we have about 300 students moving through the hallways, they look pretty good. The teachers have been amazing, and everything from essentially teaching an additional class section to their ability to make the student feel welcome, while at the same time, as I said, conditioning students in the safety protocols. So we look at it through the lens of the physical safety. We think we're in really pretty good shape, everything from transportation, getting them in the building, maintaining distancing, and then getting them in the classrooms and the protocols before and after. It is, in some regards, quite fascinating to watch the students. The adolescent is sometimes not always eager to be directed every single second of the day, but they have been amazing, because we think front-loading on that regard will make it feel a little bit regular and a little bit normal or routine. The other element, of course, is the mental wellness and the academic wellness. So we have been working really hard to go slow to go fast. So we do a 2-week rotation, 1 through 4, so the students only have to worry about those classes. We're engaging students every day in every class, so it feels like school, and they feel connected to their students. We had our first remote day today, where in a lot of classes they saw all their peers, and we are, as I said, just establishing those routines for the mental health and the academic health of the students, and we're a couple days, 3 days into the instruction part, and we're just going to keep, as I said, learning as we go, because we did have a great plan, I think, but when you implement, you learn every day. And so the flexibility and the agility of everybody to respond has been fantastic to this point.
So. Any questions, Rob?
How's the technology coming together?
So pretty good relative to where we were at the beginning of the summer, where we weren't sure we were going to have the bandwidth. People worked really hard, because technology is going to be critical, hybrid or anything. So that's why we have that 15 to 30 until we trust it 100%, and we'll probably have some more synchronous. So the feedback right now is everything from the teacher capacity to make sure all the Google Meets are set up and getting everybody on, and if you have your students on in front of you and your students on at home, how's it working in the classroom relative to everything from Reverb, but the early reports are good. And I just talked to Chris today, and we've got some trouble spots, and he'll come and do some direct triaging of those. It's a little slack and a little freezing, and yeah, but that is also on the other end. If you're following the news, 3 guesses of what company reported a major outage. I think our first day of classes. So we're trying on this end, and then on the Google end. So that's what I'm saying. We're go slow to go fast. 15 to 30. Check in questions. Layer some more synchronous, and it'll feel even a little bit more as a continuum. So, but the reports are really just around that. A little bit of freezing. But it seems like only a couple areas. Tech was in once, and they'll come back and troubleshoot to the probably 2 or 3 rooms that have been reporting lately. And we're extending over the next month or so to include outside spaces, because we're encouraged to use outside spaces, so we don't want our remote learners to lose touch if we're going to use an outside space, so we're even being proactive in that regard.
Mr. Berman?
Skip right over.
Actually, Rob did a really nice job, giving an overview of what's going on, but when you stop and think about it, and you look at what happened here, there wasn't a part of what we normally do in our schools that didn't get touched. I mean, it was busing, it was food service, it's special education, it's every aspect of what we would normally have planned to do to open up our schools is completely overhauled, really. And so you could put together your best plan that you possibly can. And as Rob said, you come in, and then that's when the fine tuning, goes into place, because that's necessary. But I would say, kudos to all of our staffs, our teachers directly, about preparing their curriculum, not really knowing until quite a way into the process, where they'd be teaching, what they'd be teaching, who they'd be teaching, and hanging on and doing a great job with that, and preparing, for both a hybrid and a remote program. Our food service hit the ground running, and here they are one day, in the cafeteria with 200 kids at a time being served lunch at a traditional counter, and the next thing you know, we've got carts and bags and delivering specifically to classrooms, and we're ordering like we're at a restaurant, what we're going to have for lunch that day. Our transportation has just never missed a beat. I mean, when the buses pull in, boom, 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 they're there, the buses are marked, the kids are getting their hands sanitized as they're getting on. They had rosters of the kids who were supposed to be on the buses. It just took such tremendous amount of pressure off, Kevin and myself in middle school. But I can go on and on about every single service. I mean, I'd be remiss if I say something like that. Oh, that's, the stuff that they've had to do and then redo again, and then one more time to redo it and think about it, So just the resiliency of our district, I thank you, the school board for understanding and having faith and confidence in all of us to be able to put together plans and trust that we do the kids right and our communities and our families right. Thank you, John, and the central office. And our kids came back. I mean, it was crazy good. Crazy good. Staying 6 feet apart, not giving somebody a high five, and being able to not be in a social environment when they first came in, to go directly to a classroom and be with 10 students, and kind of stay with those 10 students throughout the day. I know I'm going to miss a whole bunch of things, but I couldn't be prouder. I really couldn't be prouder. Nobody needs the big proud daddy or anything like that. Okay, I get that, but I couldn't be prouder of the effort and the work that we put in. And the staff that we've had. So I'm a prayerful guy, and I'm going to keep praying and we'll keep going well. I'd ask if there's any questions for you all, but so far so good. Really, really great stuff. Any questions at all? Good.
So for you folks that have been around for a long time, every year I would say at the beginning of the school year, there's only 3 things I worry about at the beginning of those first few days. Get them there, feed them, get them home. I have to say that. It's always there. And I'll tell you, when you have half a day and the kids are eating breakfast, snack, and lunch between 9 and 11:30, that's all they're doing is eating. But I agree with what you guys have said. You put a plan on paper, and then when you implement it, you're just waiting for all of a sudden, the shoe to drop. But it has been wonderful. And I think as a board, I think that we couldn't have done it if we didn't have that slow opening. So I think that having those 4 days for those teachers to be able to get in and be able to and we didn't get everything done that we needed to do, but at least that we were able to catch a breath. And then at least at the elementary level, they have like half days. Because it's really interesting. The first day those kids came in, I mean, it's weird. And I was talking to the kids today. I said, isn't this weird? Just you're wearing masks and everything. And the kids were really tentative. Really. They were just checking everything out. Well, I haven't seen anybody in the office yet, but I know it's coming. The beard is wearing off. But it's, and we haven't, there's some things we haven't done yet. We haven't had recess. I was talking to the kids today. That's going to be very different than we've had before. We haven't had the buses at 3 o'clock come, and so there's still some things we've got to figure out. But it is so nice to have the kids in the building, and they just that bantering back and forth that we have, and they're really trying to, and we're really trying to just build community. It's not about math. It's not about reading. Not that I'm doing those things, but it's building that community. Kids building trust. I'm going to have to tell them tomorrow, because they've already kind of gone back to when you dismiss, all of a sudden there's a bird. Okay, so we got to say, look, kids, look, we got to remember that that we need to give some space. So we're going to continue, but how do you do that without always saying, don't, get apart. So we got to find a way to do that. Rob talked about the outdoor. My school is outdoors the entire time. Okay, and our teachers, they got together and said, I'm taking this space, I'm taking this space. And so I would say at least 50% of the time, the teachers are going, and it's not just those outdoor classrooms we created, it's they're finding spots. We put whiteboards on the outside of the building. And so teachers can go right out there and do a lesson right out there. So they're really using the outdoor facilities wonderful. So, and the remote, we've got 4 remote teachers, we've got about 80 kids that are remote. I've met with 3 of the 4 classes so far, so I've met with 3/4 of the kids. You know, you get on online and say, Mr. Brunel. So those teachers are doing a phenomenal job. I think we got to make sure that we remember that those kids and those staff members are part of Marshall Baker School, Marshall Middle School, whatever. They are all our kids. Staff has been wonderful. Health, transportation, wonderful. Like Tony says, the food service is entirely different. It's entirely different. And I just thank you for the parents. We have about 100 parents, or maybe 80 parents, taking our kids out now. Now that's very different than it used to be. All right, we don't even allow our teachers to park in the parking lot. They have to park on Academy Street just because of the flow of traffic. And Chris Burbank from the Southborough Police Department, he was down there those first few days. And what we did is we dismissed all of our walkers, our kids being picked up, which is about 80 cars. And after the second day, Chris looked at me and says, Jerry, this is not going to work. You know, we've got to come up with something else. And so I just sent an email out to parents that said, Southborough, you're going to pick up at X, whatever, quarter of. Elliot, you're going to pick up here. Jeff, you've been perfect. So I know there are bumps. There are going to be things we'll have to figure out. We haven't figured out everything. But I sleep a lot better now than I did about 2 weeks ago. Any questions for me?
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of what everyone said for sure. I think that first day, we were just, I think all staff members, all 60 of us were outside ready for everyone to come, and we were just so amazed by the gentle pace of everything. I'm just so thankful for our community, and our parents are following we have all these time slots with every 5 minutes, drop off that takes about 20 minutes, and we got a nice grade level, and everyone's following every single rule that's making it so smooth. I really thought I'd be pulling 6-year-olds off their parents, and they've been with them since March, and they were running from their parents. It was just so different than I was ever expecting. So we planned, everyone just did so many plans, and it all just fell into place. It's amazing what, having only 220 probably kids at a time with pre-K being halftime at the Monday, Tuesday. So that's just a way different feel for our school. Usually we're more like 400 kids. So that's a big difference, having 250 kids at one time. So just feels very doable with the space. And we're really strict about a lot of things in the beginning, walking kids everywhere, but we're able, the kids have practiced so much more than we imagined at home. Their mask wearing is not a problem, which I thought 4-year-olds would be able to wear masks, but they're much better than the adults. They're just doing it really, really well with their mask wearing. And if you want to do something cute, 4-year-olds on desks in pre-K, they all have little desks and their feet are dangling, and I think they think they're like in high school. They're so cool and they're so adorable. So again, just thankful, just like everyone's thankful for our staff and our families and all of you. The half days just made a huge difference. And like Jerry said, I was leaving, okay, that actually all worked. It's just crazy how, Monday will be the big day when we mix pre-K with the pre-K and K with the rest of the kids in the afternoon. Right now we just have the 40 kids in the afternoon. So that'll be, but it's it's going to work because of how much we put into it. Recess has gone really well. That was another thing I didn't know. Like everyone would be crossing, we have our cohorts all day, and the teachers take out the children on the different places of recess, and there's a routine schedule, and kids understand, and they're not trying to mingle with each other. They're staying with their groups. Today, the little kindergartners, the first thing they came out of the car was, today I get to touch the playground equipment. It's my turn. So they're just so excited to do the different things. Our PTO has been standing, and they bought cushions for every child. Every child had their own cushion to take outside to eat lunch and to take outside for outdoor learning. Our school is super quiet. Everyone is outside most of the time. I can't ever find anyone like to give them notes because everybody's outside doing their learning outside, which is really neat. Our PTO also finished some of our outdoor classroom project, and we now have fencing, and our woods are much more accessible. So one of the rotations for recess is playing in the woods, which now everybody can do, not just the older kids, because there were some safety issues with the younger kids, and now they can all have a turn in the woods. So Laura Detweiler, my nurse, has just been, everything. Like we go to her all. She's such a rock, and just helping us even the little questions that like, hey, how do you share books? How do you get things? She answers them so clearly that, and I think that was just a lot of nerves in the beginning, and how you're gonna, what can you share, what can, and now as we practice, everyone's relaxed, and so it's been really great. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay, Peter, pressure's on now. Give you 4 to warm up.
Thank you. To the board, thank you, John, thank you for the opportunity to join your community. It's been incredible. I've been in a lot of places over the course of my 37 years of business, and this is so refreshing. It's so optimistic and positive. And having students participate in this process is so impressive. And exciting for me. So thank you for allowing me to join you. I would just cite a couple of things very similar to the other administrators. The pre-planning that went into getting ready for the opening of school, again, so impressive, so detailed. The practice really paid off in big ways. I have yet to see a student out of 297 students without a mask on for the course of the day. That is incredible. I didn't anticipate that at all. Teachers know what the safety protocols are. They're practicing with the kids on a daily basis. I think that's why we're leading some success as a result of that. And the investment parents are making at home. So that's terrific. Just quickly, a couple of things. Our emphasis, my emphasis with the staff has been to do some reflecting on history, those experiences they've had that have led up to this year, take advantage of their information that they've gathered over time to help inform future planning. So we've done that with multiple groups within the building, both collective groups and individuals. I think that would be really helpful for us as we set goals going forward. I would say that PEEPS is what I've always called parent-teacher organization, really contributing in very positive ways. They've reached out to me. I've met with them. I'll meet with them again tomorrow. But I think my observation is, and again tonight, is that there's a great deal of collaboration going on in this district. Good for you, because that's not going on everywhere. And that's a real kudos to you. That's really impressive to do. The other principals said it all. It's been very positive. I'm really happy with it, really happy to be here. Thanks very much.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is just a quick summary. We met as an administrative team on Monday afternoon. Part of that meeting was we provided a list of all of the extracurricular activities, non-athletic extracurricular activities that are involved in our teachers' contracts. And so what we did with those is now we'll review those and figure out of those activities, what can we offer remotely. So Rich will talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but being in yellow, what we can do in person is really nothing at this point in time outside of the regular school day. And so we'll start looking at what we can do remotely, and then we'll start giving out those contracts to be able to get those staff members getting that up and rolling right now. So as we went through, there are some things that like logically, sure, we can do that. So our civil rights teams are meeting right now virtually. So that, we know that's an example of something that we can do. We're not going to have virtual detention, right? We're not going to do that, right? And so we know, so we're not going to fill those positions, but we are going to fill, the civil rights team. And so, we may fill the French club, because if the teacher, feels like they can do that remotely, we want to do that. So part of this process is also reaching out to those people who are the advisors and saying, look, is this possible? Does this make sense? You know, is this, because it creates a new set of challenges. You have to think outside the box a little bit. And as I've said to you before, this thinking outside the box is destroying the box, and we're kind of destroyed the box right now. So we're starting all over again. So that process is underway. So we hope within the next couple of weeks we'll have some clarity and start being able to have those offerings for kids. It'd be great if October 1st we could start to really try to get kids engaged in some of those after-school activities. Obviously, keep kids on sites would be great, but right now we don't control that. So that's just where we are with the extracurriculars. So it's, for example, I mentioned it before, but TAMU West talked about doing the district musical remotely. So let's have a deeper conversation about, it's one thing to want to do it, let's talk nuts about can we do it? Because if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. We just can't, we can't be half in, half out. So let's just, with anything. So, any questions about extracurriculars, non-athletic extracurriculars? Okay, perfect. We asked Rich to come. Obviously, he's been extremely busy, and I just need to applaud the work that he's done. I mean, the nights that he and I speak probably 5 or 6 times a day. But I'll call him at 7 o'clock at night. And he's like, Kat, I'm sorry, I'm on a Zoom right now with the SMA athletic directors. So I mean, these people are going, trying to figure out what does athletics look like. And so Rich kind of has some information he can update with us.
Yeah, sure. I'll stand up back here so they can hear me. I'm going to build thanks for having me, by the way. I'm going to build kind of the last meeting on September 2nd. I like going in kind of a timeline to give you where we've been since then. As John said, we're in a yellow designation as designated by the DOE, governor, and we're looking at a recheck time of, we've heard the 18th, which we originally thought it might be 2 weeks after the fact, it might be on the 25th, but we're hoping Friday. We're waiting on clarity, but a couple people who checked in and just told us it's the 18th, so we could get cleared on the 18th, and that would be good news for all of our after-school activities. But what's happened since then? Since our last board meeting on that 4 days of school, like Mr. Scully had said, and Terry had said, that first 4 days where we had a slow introduction with all the kids, getting back to school, we set up rotations. A group of kids throughout the school in 4 different areas. And we had rotations of athletics, we had athletics and activities, we had our school nurse talking with the kids, we had the counselors talking with the kids and administration to kind of give them an overview of everything. So I got a chance to see everybody's face, or at least half their faces. I was saying, well, I wish I could see all their faces, but everybody's in masks obviously now. But I got a chance. It was tedious at times because it was 32 presentations over 4 days, because it was 8 presentations a day for us, half-hour rotation, but it gave us a chance to talk to the kids and give them exactly what was going on, and have them ask questions, and that was really important. And then we followed that up with, on September 9th, myself, our trainer Brian Townsend, and the coaches all met with the kids individually down on the fields in spaced out areas in 15, 20-minute rotations, and talk to them about where we are, guidelines, protocols. We just felt it was really important to keep them in the know and give them all the information, good and bad, where we were sitting. So that was pretty productive. We felt on the 10th, the MPA released guidelines after they worked with DOE, DHHS, Economic Development, to talk about what sports could be played if you were in a county that was designated green. And what they had come up with was golf, cross country, field hockey in a modified fashion, soccer modified, 7v7 football, which is non-tackle football, no equipment, outdoor volleyball, and sideline cheer. Unfortunately, we were in the yellow at the time, and we remained in the yellow. So we're in a holding pattern right now, up in the air, and hoping that will change. But those are the things that can be offered if we go into the green. And what we've been doing with the coaches has been prepping to have that rollout if we're able to do that. Our coaches have been planning for interscholastic participation and an in-house version if we cannot have interscholastic, and also meeting with kids virtually, because John and I and the rest of the administrators all talked about how important it was to keep the kids engaged. They need to see those kids. They just don't need to see the kids that are in their alphabet at the school. They need to see the kids that, you know, they're friends with and that they've had close ties with since they've probably been in kindergarten and first grade. So the coaches are going to remain engaged virtually until we get to the designation back to green. Our fingers crossed for that. Today, all the local high school ADs from Saco down to Kittery met via Zoom. And we had, this is high school ADs, we had 12 or 14 of us on there, including Seacoast Christian and Berwick Academy, to talk about what we could do when we came out of the green, and we set ourselves up in pods to have some really close transportation and really close competition that we can play home and aways around with people, so that we are prepared when the time comes to do that. We got some great information on that as well. The MPA right now is looking to play potentially tackle football and indoor volleyball later in the year. Both John and I have been in contact with the MPA to talk about how important it is to make sure all our kids have the activities that they want, and if we can get something for those kids that are missing out on their season in the fall, if any of them go awry, then we're going to try to work towards that as well. The MPA and DOE are looking at, you know, one of the big worries right now is winter sports being indoors. And that's a concern for us, but the MPA and DOE are working together on winter options, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of questions out there right now on what we can offer, when we can offer it, how we can offer it, what we get, and we'll look to be problem solvers in that area as well. This afternoon at 4 o'clock, our entire middle school league met. It's very interesting. We have 36 schools in the middle school league. And it's basically from Oxford Hills, Lewiston, Auburn, all the way down to Kittery. So we were all on the Zoom call this afternoon talking about what school boards have done for them as far as allowing them to play, not allowing them to play, what their parameters have been. And, you know, there's 3 different counties involved, because there is Androscoggin County, there is Cumberland County, and York County are involved. One county, obviously, us, yellow, the rest of them are green. However, the big hurdle, like I brought up at the last meeting, the big hurdle is busing and officials availability for the kids. We agreed to put off middle school sports initially until the 21st of September to buy us some time, to make sure that we have enough time to plan and we were able to roll out. Right now, we're obviously in yellow. We all know that. When we checked with transportation companies as well as officials, it was not promising for our kids to even be able to get the schedule. The middle school league, because out of the 36 teams, 28 teams were going to be choosing in-house options. And that did not include Marshall, because we had not made that decision yet, but 28 out of 36 decided that they were going to do in-house intramural options for their kids. Both Tony and I and Kevin met a couple days ago to talk about what our options would look like, and we want to give our kids the opportunity to do things as well. We're prepared to do intramural options as well and offer it to our kids 3 days a week after school, from 3:45 to 5:30, and we'll be, Kevin and I are going to meet with the coaches next week on Tuesday to go over everything, what that would look like, and make sure that we have, if they have to meet with them virtually, here's what it's going to look like. If we can meet with them outside, we're going to follow the MPA guidelines, because they all have that now on what the parameters are going to be and what the protocols and guidelines will be. We're also looking at doing an outdoor court here for volleyball that can be used in both a PE setting and an after-school setting for us. It's interesting, there's schools in our league that are looking at that. There's one school, Falmouth, has already built theirs and it is done. Berwick Academy is going to have one as well. So there are a few schools out there that have opportunities to play, and I know our kids are really interested in doing some outdoor volleyball. We just got to hope the weather works with us, because it's starting to get cold already pretty quickly. And I think that is it. And we are pretty sure if we can get outside, we are going to do some 7-on-7 football. And also, you know, John and Alex and all the staff. We all had a Zoom call the other night just to talk to the kids. Alex wanted us to talk to the seniors and talk to them about what their season would look like, because it was not going to be a regular football season, at least initially. And the kids were pretty, they've been really great. And I got to echo what the principal said. Like, I thought one of the biggest battles we were going to fight going back into school was kids keeping their masks on and not having them down. But I'll tell you, our kids have been great. They have been great, helping clean up around areas for us. Just working with everybody, it's been real positive. It's been great. Haven't seen them back in school up there. Today's like the 6-month mark. It's March 16th where we went out. It's September 16th now, so it's six long months, but it's good having them right back. So, any questions, I guess? Stay tuned. We're going to go back to Green.
So we have made the decision to pay our head coaches. And so we have not done contracts with the assistant coaches at this point in time, because we're not sure if those programs are going to run. But at this point, the head coaches have put a tremendous amount of work in just being ready. And so at the moment's notice, when we get the green light, then we can be able to kind of take that next step. And those people are prepared to do that. So they've been fantastic. Obviously, it's hard for the kids. It's hard for for the adults. We want to be mindful of the mental wellness of everybody. So we'll be ready as soon as we get that. Kind of get the okay to safe, and that's ultimately what we've talked about.
So Rich, you think that there will be a 7-on-7 football program?
We've talked about that.
Interscholastically?
What's that?
Interscholastically rather than intramural.
Interscholastically.
Yeah.
Today when we met, I did a graph just so I keep track of everything. There were, I kept track of everybody that was doing, every school was going to offer soccer. Every school, with the exception of Seacoast Christian, was going to do field hockey. Every school was going to do cross country. Every school was going to do golf, with the exception. 5 outdoor volleyball groups and 7 B football groups, and there were 3 or 4 deciding on cheering. Which cheering is going to be allowed in a sideline format. They can cheer for other teams, but they were not going to allow any stunting or tumbling, obviously.
And if we do put up a 7-on-7 program, there's no question about eligibility for the full football, should it happen in the spring?
Well, they could still do both. Yeah, they could still let them do both. Yeah, great
Great.
question. Yeah. And the same thing with volleyball. If we ran an outdoor volleyball program, the kids would still be able to participate in the indoor volleyball if it was able to move inside. So NPA's told us that. Yeah.
This is all pending green.
Pending green.
Okay, so what happens on Friday if it stays yellow? Is there another opportunity after that to maybe?
There is still more opportunity. The NPA has actually given us till November 14th to play, to get together with the kids, which is a couple weeks longer than, except with the exception of football. Football goes until the 21st with the state championship games because of the facilities. But most of the other sports are done in a normal year, November 3rd, 4th time frame. But they've given us till November 14th to compete, to let our kids, get together, let coaches be with those kids. So we have some time. The things we're going to fight, we talked about today, the things we're going to fight with is daylight. Because most people only have one lighted field. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue. You can only have, 100 people gathered in one area at any one time. So, there'll be some obstacles out there, but we feel like we're on top of a lot of it right now. We're just hoping for that green designation. When the green designation comes, we'll be ready. But if it doesn't, we also talked about, would there be a date, because I kept track of what people's cutoff dates would be. And there was only 3 schools. One school said that if we didn't have anything October 2nd, as far as going green, they were going to pull the plug. October 9th for a couple schools. York has already voted that they are not going to do any interscholastic competition no matter what. York made that decision of doing it. I think it was last night. They told us today they would have no interscholastic competition regardless if they went green or not.
And no playoffs, Rich.
And no playoffs. The MPA, I should say this, the MPA will not sanction playoffs the MPA will not provide a regional or a state championship. They told us that we could compete if we wanted to do a local area championship. We could do it ourselves if we wanted to, like the top 4 teams, if we figure it out. So that's an option out there for us. And some of our kids would probably love to do it. I mean, I'd love to do it if our kids wanted to, but we can figure out a way.
And Rich, what about spectators?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw the news last night, the Mountain Valley Conference, which is just above, it's around the Augusta area for the most part. They voted because of difficulty in testing and keeping control, like the things that they couldn't control with spectators, they voted not to have spectators. The SMAA, we just met today and we developed our statement that said the exact same thing, that we were not going to allow spectators because we didn't feel that we could do it equitably across the border, across the line. You've got, if you're playing a soccer game and you've got 40 kids out there, with a varsity and JV team, you've got 80 already with both teams competing, plus your game personnel. You're probably in the 90s at that point, so what 10 parents do you let into it? So what we have done is, the National Federation has a broadcast program that they offered up at the beginning of the year, in June, if we wanted to take part in it. They would provide free Pixel-Lot cameras, 2 per school, which are $3,000 cameras. So we have 2 Pixel-Lot cameras on the way to live stream events. So one could go in our gym, one could go on stadium field. For some of our other event areas, we talked also today on things we could do. We could have a Facebook Live feed that we could tell parents that we're going to Facebook Live feed off the Marshall Sports page or whatever. So we're looking at doing that so that people will know. We're keeping tabs on what people are going to use. We got to get the internet down to the stadium, so we're working on that right now. That can be an outdoor classroom for us as well. So having internet down there will be key. But we've got there's plenty of options to live stream out there. So we can, if we are allowed to do basketball and some other events in the winter time, that we would live stream events if the governor's order is still at 100 or 50 or less indoors. So that's the big thing, that we just felt like we don't want to put people in harm's way. And we kind of followed what the Mountain Valley Makers came out before we did, but we were prepping our statement for a few days on what we were going to do. And we felt that we needed to be consistent throughout, because we didn't want some people to be able to come to Marshwood and not go to Wells and not go to Kenny Pond. Great question.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys, very much. Thanks for
Fingers crossed.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thanks.
This is crazy.
We'll get through it.
So the last part of my agenda before I go to the student report is the Cultural Competency Institute. We were not able to get 3 teams in. We had hoped to get 3 teams in. They said that the request for involvement was overwhelming for the MSMA or MSBA, excuse me. And so we did get a team in, which is great. They are basically the second Monday, I think of the month, second or third Monday of the month. There's a schedule that will come out, but in order to do that, we kind of just tried to find people from across the district that would make the most sense. So we asked Peter to do that from Elliott Elementary School. Heidi will do that. Lisa, Rich Buzzle, and then Renee. So we'll have 5 people that will be involved with that, and then we'll work with our groups as we continue our district work that we're doing. So we had a first kind of official class on Monday. We're trying to get a videotape of that for those people who weren't able to tune in, and then I think we can start to kind of navigate themselves as they go along. So I know that Heidi watched it on Monday night.
I was there.
Oh,
I made it, yeah.
You did? Okay, good. Yeah.
Last minute, I was there.
It was a little hectic.
It was good. It was good. The very last, it was good.
But I think there was over 350 people involved in the Zoom meeting, so it's,
It was a lot for them to manage, clearly.
Yeah. They're getting their bearings. Yeah.
But the materials were really good, and they pushed those out, and I think getting more than a couple of hours ahead
Yeah.
next time would be great for those of us. On the team.
So I think with that work that we're doing, I think the work that we're doing with Jermaine, I think the work that we're doing with our book reading, and then Chica, I gotta say, when you talked about creating a staff group to review literature, I thought that was a great idea. So that's something I think that's kind of the big highlights on my paper right now, just thinking about different ways that we can really dive into this work. And again, it's about changing culture. It's not about doing an activity, it's about changing culture. How do we make this a better place for all? How do we make sure we ensure our mission is being protected for all students? So, student report?
So, because the clubs can't be in person, some of them are starting to plan online meetings like SchoolGov and Interact. And Interact is actually pre-planning a lot of your events, like they're planning a beach cleanup right now for when we have an OBA to do that. And Interact Club, over the summer, they raised over $1,200 for the NAACP Youth Defense Fund, and they compete against United States Without Organization by selling bracelets, so that's amazing. Okay. And that's all I have,
So to kind of provide more information with the point of view of the students for sports, I'll happy to report that we see more students still having that motivation to go for the run. Even though we might not be having tryouts or other things like that, we still see people going to the gym and getting the work that we're missing for sports. And for school-wise, students are trying to get used to the fact that the arrows, I myself have failed a couple of times by going upstairs and trying to go right. And we also see that schools are online, if we're online, they're so much more developed. We see stuff about websites like Google Meet is so much more better than Google Hangout than last year. We also see teachers who not just go on for Google Meet for 10 minutes, but rather the whole class period teaching. And other things like teachers are more prepared and things like that.
Thanks, Sharon.
You answered all the questions I was going to ask. Thanks.
So my last thing, I just want to make a recommendation, kind of get the board's feedback. I think we may want to invest in the amplifiers that we can be able to put a headset on so you can hear us a little bit better. I think it's difficult with the masks on. I know it's difficult for Elaine, so.
I don't want to pick on Sydney, but I couldn't hear a word.
Yeah, so Ryan, we'll look into that for the next meeting, just to be able to give that a shot, because it is difficult to hear, and I'm sure for people in the audience, it's tricky as well. I can't imagine how it would be, so
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, well, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it okay if I pause for just a second? We've got some spectacular updates today from everybody, and I want to use Tony's words. You thank the board for faith and confidence. There's also a healthy measure of awe, at least for me, and I think I'm speaking for my fellow board members. I'm just blown away by the work that's getting done here, and it's changing, as Jerry pointed out, with the traffic pattern, where it's not just execute the plan, we're having to innovate every day, and it's just awesome. It's a privilege to be able to support you all. Thank you all. Okay, I'm sorry. I need to get that out of my system.
No.
We agree. In correspondence, I did get a reach out from Deanna in the South Berwick Town office reminding us of the need to do the South Berwick, or to need to do a school submission for the South Berwick Town report. We do the same for the Elliott Town report. So the due date on that is January 29th, so I'm probably consulting with my fellow board members to brainstorm ideas for that. But we do want to get through this semester and whatever it brings before we start working on that update. Next thing on the agenda is the report of committees. The Facilities and Finance Committee met earlier this evening. I will give the numbers, and this is going to give a shot at the facility and transportation and food service stuff. I hope I do this justice because there was a lot of information, Ryan. Thank you. The audit that we usually have done at this time of the year is not yet available, and it's because the CRF money that we have been counting on that has been retroactive to March now has to be accounted for and has to be separated out. That work is ongoing. We expect to see that shortly. In terms of general fund, we are expending below budget. but our revenues are also below our expenditures. We had a 3 payroll month in July, and the Rollins Fertility number is expected to catch up. There's some concern about the reimbursements from the state on money that we've already spent against the federal guarantees, and that the work to get that money back is ongoing. We have another 3 payroll month coming up in December, so as always, we'll keep an eye on the cash balance, but it's currently on a trajectory where it should right itself shortly. We also have spent some lease money on some buses. I think that's pretty much the story with the numbers. So I'll give it over to Lisa to talk about the other stuff.
Sure. So the facility and transportation update. I didn't know I was going to do this, so forgive me if I'm missing a few things, but I think I've got it. So Perry, the town manager of South Berwick, did a little update. He is on his way out, I think, to retirement, right? Not just moving.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so he gave an update on that. And shared that the big road project here is almost done, correct? And the widening of the road and all of that. And he has been really a big fan of this idea of doing a survey, traffic surveys, to determine if we need a light, which I think most of us would agree we do, but there needs to officially be a survey in order for that to be funded. And so the question was, Perry, since you're leaving, should we try to get that in now? And he said, actually, no, the best thing to do would be to wait till there's more businesses across the street so we actually have the real view of what the traffic pattern will be. We got an update about what happened over the summer. Lots of paving happened around the district. Windows were, new windows at Central School, the outdoor classroom, at the Great Works School, and also the reminder that we have ordered some new buses. 2 are supposed to come in October, and 2 more being financed with the CRF funds. In terms of the food service update, it was shared that typically, normally, we're serving across the district about 1,500 meals a day, and right now it's about 500 meals a day, so a significant difference overall, and also equates to a loss, obviously, for our food service budget. I asked the question because I didn't know until I saw it on Facebook that our district is offering free meals for all students, and I know that was a big shocker for a lot of people beyond me too, so that was really good news. And then I realized that was also being paid for with federal money. That's federal money.
Yes.
So that's actually not coming out of our own budget, but doesn't make up for the difference in the loss that we're having with the less meals being served. And that our food service, as we've heard from everyone, is just doing an amazing job in doing all of the work that they do to give our kids meals every day. We did hear about the outdoor volleyball court, which is very exciting, and we heard about some contracted maintenance for, what was the story behind that? We have contracted.
We worked with a contractor to kind of lighten the load on our custodians, so we kind of bring that group in using some CRF money to kind of do the outside landscaping in the buildings, and so it allows to take some work off the custodial plate so they can kind of stay in the building and maintain the cleaning.
Do what they need to do to keep us safe. Yeah.
We could either hire more custodians, which you couldn't find any, or we had to try to lessen the load, and so we wanted to, it'll be easier once we did a RFP for that.
That's what I have, Joe.
That was awesome.
That was great.
Okay.
One other thing, and it was because I asked the question at the meeting, and that's with regards to the tents.
Oh, yes, the
that we
tents.
awarded. They're scheduled to start installing on Monday. This is to expand the sheltered outdoor space.
That's correct. And I
Each of the buildings.
think it's important to note that we're having those professionally done. We're not going to try to do that ourselves. And these are big tents, so people put these up for a living, and so we're having a company that'll come in. The plan right now is that they'll be here at the high school. On Monday, we're going to put 2 tents up here at the high school. Tuesday will be 2 tents at the middle school, and then we'll go to the elementary schools after that.
Great. Thank you. The Education Policy Committee has not yet met this school year and is scheduled to meet on September 23rd, so we'll get an update from them next time. Yes, correct. Great. We have one item of new business. involving a nomination for a position at Marshall High School. May I have a motion, please, to nominate Rob Childs?
A motion to nominate Rob Childs, physical education / health for Marshall High School, first year probationary period 9, 53,983, prorated to the start date, first year probationary school year 2020-2021.
And Sue seconds. Great.
I first got to say, interviewing people now is so different than it was 15 years ago. The fact that you can Zoom somebody who's in Philadelphia and have a conversation is just, it blows me away. Like, you're just sitting there, like, wait a second, like, kind of thinking about the whole thing. But Rob is a teacher in Philadelphia right now, teaching both physical education and health. He went to Slippery Rock University. Really, his role in the Philadelphia schools is really some big class sizes. Really trying to do a lot. He's fully remote at this point in time. This opportunity came up. It sounded like a home run for us. Got some great experience, particularly in health, and then just also some different activities that would really add some real quality experience for our kids. And so super energetic, super excited, and so we're really fortunate to be able to have Rob join us with approval.
Any questions? All in favor? That would be 4-0. Before we enter into executive session, does anyone else have anything they'd like to bring before the board? Okay, then.
Can I share just a quick metaphor? So this is a conversation that we had. So people wonder what's it like working in a school right now. And so this is the way I explained it to the administrative team. Imagine yourself being 10 years old and going to a haunted house for the very first time. You know it's going to be scary, and you're kind of walking around, tiptoeing through, but you know something's going to come out at some point. And so that's where we're at right now. I think we all have these feelings like things are going really well. We're really proud of the work that we do, but we know there's going to be some bumps in the road coming up. So I think we all kind of have that. I think all of us are knocking on wood. Hey, that sounds good. So far, so good. But I think there's also the point that we realize that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's going to be some bumps in the road. So that's kind of the feeling I think that we all have right now. So we kind of laugh when Rob said, I'm a superstitious person. I'm like, oh, I get it. So, but just to kind of give you an idea what that feels like. That's what it feels like to me anyway. So, anyway,
Before we do that, could I ask Scott, how is it going for you?
Oh, it's fabulous. No. Do you want me to get an update now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it too late?
Yeah. So, student services office special services office, is busy. I can tell you, I'll do the good news first. You have an incredible resource with your special education teachers and related service providers in your district. They're intelligent, they're innovative, and they're positive, and they're a joy to work with. But at the same time, I get to have two teams. I get to have that team, and I get to have an administrative team. And I can't say enough about the collaboration between Peter and I in a week. The collaboration that we do around various issues, problem solving and trying to figure out how to support staff and kids. I will tell you, I probably had my saddest day when we went through the reopening plan on state guidance in 30 years, and I realized that we have kids who are not going to be able to sustain the mask requirement or the face shield requirement. At least that was the first reaction. I can't say enough. Whether it be me driving masks to parents' house and shields to parents' house to help with students with disabilities and training. I can say that all of our in-district kids right now are trained with masks and shields, significantly disabled kids, and we're expecting them to turn to the general setting within the next week, which is really very happy for me, and it offsets that sadness of thinking that they wouldn't have that opportunity. Heather has been pretty amazing when it comes to transportation and special education and trying to work with families and out-of-district placements on the mask requirements. I can't say enough good things about how that's going. At the same time, it's incredibly busy right now. One of the biggest challenges that you have is because of the shutdown in March, 1/3 of your special education students are up for reevaluation every 3 years. So So you're significantly behind in evaluation. So I've done some things to address that. I've actually hired Dr. Smith back to administer some evaluations to get us caught up. And they're working with the staff on how we're going to prevent this from happening again if it happens. Some teletherapy ideas, some teletesting ideas, and how we're going to do that. But it has been very busy, but very rewarding at the same time. And I'll just echo the same thing. You've done a lot to be proud of.
Thank you. I know your kids pose above and beyond issues, and I wanted to hear how it was going.
Yes, but the successes are sweeter.
Excellent.
And it's been great to get, create some structures and get, prompt responses and forward thinking and just being able to be one step ahead of when the problem comes and be able to really work together, which has been a really nice start to, our time here. And I think it's helped the school year get off to a great start. It's been a really important part and really taking some pressure off the special education teachers. So, thank you for asking.
Yes.
We're so
Thank you for your
fortunate to
efforts,
have you. Really. I'm hearing such.
Well, it's only been a month, so let's.
Yeah.
Remember the haunted house, right?
My point is that the leadership team here is just phenomenal, and I'm so proud of our district, and I'm also proud, actually, of our community for being so supportive. For the most part, incredibly supportive and patient through the ups and downs, especially of the last couple of weeks. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion to enter executive session?
I move we enter into executive session.
I think you have to read the whole thing.
Oh, I don't have it now.
Oh, you don't have it?
Oh, here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I move we enter into an executive session to investigation of charges against the person or persons, 1 MRSA, paragraph 456A1.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Four.
Yeah, you have to be.